From the Lokochogio airbase in northern Kenya, a Hercules aircraft claws into the sky, taking food aid to South Sudan. Painted United Nations white, they bear the blue logo of the World Food Programme, a hand clutching ears of corn. On the ground, aid workers and aircrew prepare further aid drops of food, medicines or clothes. The UN aid effort in South Sudan is costing almost $1 million a day. But the UN says it may take another year for the 2 million famine victims to fully recover, and so the aid flights continue. But there's one part of war-ravaged South Sudan the UN flights aren't going to. In tiny Cessna aircraft, these aid workers are flying to the remote and rugged Nuba Mountains. Despite the ongoing famine, the Sudan government has banned all agencies, including the UN, from taking aid here. Because of this blockade, the Nuba remain one of the most isolated areas on Earth. The Nuba Mountains have been closed to all outsiders for over a decade. Only a tiny group of maverick aid agencies, like the UK's Christian Solidarity Worldwide, do work here, defying the wishes of the Sudan government and in danger of being shot down. They provide a fragile lifeline to the outside world. It's a 2-hour walk from the plains up into the first villages. The Nuba have fled into the hills, where they say they can better defend themselves from government attacks. The Nuba Mountains are on the border of North and South Sudan. The Nuba people support the rebel Sudan People's Liberation Army of the South. Sudan is split into an Arabic, largely Muslim north and a black African, Christian and animist south. The southern rebels are fighting what they say is aggression by an Islamic extremist north. It's Africa's longest running war, and the Nuba are caught right in the middle. Less than half the original 3 million population survive here. The Nuba are the oldest indigenous people in Sudan, the legendary first people of this, Africa's largest country. They speak over 50 different languages. They trace a history back 7,000 years, when the Nuba kingdoms stretched as far as southern Egypt. 2 plane loads of medical aid are delivered to Nyakama village. The local medic, Joseph Kunda, inspects the supplies. He tells us there is only one doctor left here to serve the million or so Nuba population, and only a handful of medics like himself. There are almost no medicines.
Hundreds of people could die if we have no medicine to treat them, especially children and infants. Estimation, I can say 200 or 300 people died around this area. Yeah, just around this area only.
A goat is slaughtered to honour our arrival. The rare presence of guests is a cause for celebration. When crops fail due to drought, livestock are one of the precious few buffers against hunger here. The Nuba have learnt to live with famine as an old friend.
People depend just to dig roots and eat roots from ground, and children dies and because of the malnutrition and some ailments caused by starvation.
The Nuba used to farm the fertile soils of the plains, but government forces launched a scorched earth policy, burning and looting villages, so they retreated into these hills. Here, they must scratch survival from the thin, rocky soils. That's in a good year when there are rains. Last year, when famine hit South Sudan, An estimated 100,000 Nuba faced starvation, but the government blockade of the Nuba remained in place, and they were the only people in all Sudan denied UN food aid. These 3 women lost children to the hunger. There are many more like them.
There was massive starvation. I was dehydrated and had no milk for my child. We went to the forest to find wild fruits. Maybe that's why my child died. We received no help.
All 3 are also widows. They lost their husbands in the war. Haida Osman says she doesn't want to have another family. Despite the suffering, no one comes here to help them. Those Nuba children who have survived still show the signs of recent hunger. And the rainy season, the time when famine may strike again, is now just beginning. The Nuba ask why they have been forgotten when Kosovo receives so much aid.
What the Western done in Kosovo is very good. I don't say it, but it's very good to save people from problem. But why they don't want to help also Sudanese people to get out of this problem, I also don't know, because the war in Sudan started before the war in Kosovo. And many people died in the war. Millions of people, I say, died in Sudan. I thought that UN is for all the people to help all people in the world, but it is opposite.
They may lack even the basics of human survival, but every Nuba household boasts a gun. They accuse the Islamic extremist regime of deliberately closing them off from the outside world and pursuing a jihad or Islamic holy war to exterminate them.
We are fighting actually to restore our dignity and to reserve our cultures from the process of Arabization which is taking place by the policies of the government, the Islamic government in Khartoum. And we never mind within ourselves as Nubas to be Muslims or Christians, because we as Nubas, we have many Muslims, we have many Christians, but the very important thing is that we want to keep ourselves as Nubas in Sudan.
At dawn the following morning, Yosef Haroun, rebel commander for the whole Nuba, arrives. He's walked all night to reach us. He tells us there have been 20 or more government attacks this year alone. Over 3,000 Nuba civilians have been captured and taken to the so-called peace camps.
They call them peace camps, but they're not peaceful places. The people are divided into 4 groups. The boys to be trained as soldiers for indoctrination, the girls to be taken as wives for soldiers. The adults are taken to work in the military farms. If they suspect you are a rebel soldier, you'll be killed immediately.
These 3 young men have recently escaped from these peace camps. They were forced to train as government soldiers. Then they were sent to fight against their own Nuba people.
They tied our hands behind our backs and poured water over us. They rolled us on the ground and beat us. Many died. After torture, they took us to the military farms. Here we had to work and harvest food. They took one of the prisoners to be killed. When I had seen them kill him, I asked the commander if I could use the bush to urinate. The soldier they sent to escort me shot at me when I ran, but he missed and I escaped.
Evidence from elsewhere in South Sudan supports their story. Many of the prisoners of war held by the rebels have been forced to fight in this way. Among the 200 or so POWs in this rebel base, around half are Nuba. The story of one is typical.
I was a student, but I was captured by the army in a roadblock when travelling from the Nuba to Khartoum. I was sent to an army camp to train for 1 year. After training, I was sent to fight the SPLA in the south. That's when I was captured. I saw the government forces capture civilians and torture them at the base, with their nails pulled out with pliers. Rebel soldiers weren't even captured. They just killed them instantly on the spot. Sometimes they were interrogated, but then they were killed. I hated the horror and cruelty of this torture. Young recruits, they brainwash them, and they are trained to come and fight blindly here. But the adults often manage to escape and avoid fighting.
Most disturbing of all, the Nuba claim UN food aid is being used in the peace camps as another weapon to destroy the Nuba people.
Sometimes, during famine and starvation, our people hear there is UN relief aid being given out in the peace camps, so they run there. And then they are forced into the camps, into the army, to fight, to suffer, just to get the aid. They know that if we had food here, all the people would leave the government areas and come back. That's how they use UN food aid as a weapon in the war against us.
Relief worker and British politician Baroness Cox led the mission to the Nuba for aid agency Christian Solidarity Worldwide.
In the visit to Nuba Mountains this time, I think the most disturbing aspect was the fact that there are these thousands of people completely cut off, still suffering very recent raids. These things are happening now. The world doesn't know. The aid organizations are not there. The people have nothing. They're cut off, isolated and dying.
They think that this is an area of the north. There is lots of ethnic cleansing in the Nuba Mountains. And so they have something to hide, a great deal to hide in the Nuba Mountains. And they are very uncomfortable about foreigners, relief workers or anybody to go to the Nuba Mountains. It's a closed district for the regime.
As we prepare to leave, we hear news that the first ever UN mission has just been allowed into the Nuba Mountains to assess aid needs. But as the UN well know, that's the start of a long process of negotiating access, which the government can frustrate for years. And the Nuba do not have time on their side.
Jama pudulur mi tangata nigale maligirode ilare le kurrain wangera gidai matengalanga